How come no one knows why the Egyptian border cities are destroyed? Why? What happened? Everyone is all eyes on Israel, but what's going on 1 and 2 miles to the south? The complete destruction of entire neighborhoods and cities across Egypt's northern Sinai. When asking around, no one knows anything about it. So just hang on tight, guys, and we're going to take a deep dive into the mysterious destruction of the Egyptian villages of northern Sinai. I'm Joshua, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome back to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, diving right into this really mysterious topic of what's going on in Egypt. I mean, really, all eyes have been on Israel. What's going on in Rafiah, Israel? But while I was down there, just on Google Maps, we were looking and we saw this. And then we came back to the office and we started pulling in some better maps, and we saw complete and utter destruction on the Egyptian side. Everybody's talking about how destroyed Gaza is. For goodness sakes, look up, take your head up out of the sand and look on the other side. It's dramatic. It's crazy. Kilometers and kilometers into Egypt are completely flattened. Now, I live here in Israel. I had no earthly idea about that. And this is probably the first time you're hearing about that because it's a mysterious thing, I'm telling you. So look at this map. 2014, we're going back here on this map that tells us what it looked like then. All the homes are built, and it seems to be a thriving community all across the northern Sinai of Egypt there, right along the Gaza and then Israel borders there. That whole area seems to be vibrant. But now we're scanning over to 2024, and look, absolutely insane, mysteriously destroyed completely. Look at this, vibrant city, no longer. Scanning over, complete destruction. What happened? Why? All right, we're gonna, in order to understand this, and we've taken a deep dive here at the Israel Guys to understand why, what happened, and what's Israel's involvement? What's the international involvement? What is going on? It seems like there hasn't been any because none of us knew about it. So let's take a deep dive back into the history. Of course, Israel had its 1979 peace treaty with Egypt. Most people don't know that when Israel signed that peace treaty and they pulled out in 1982 fully, that took a few years to make happen. They don't know that there was an agreement signed similar to that of the Oslo Accords here in Israel between the Palestinians. There was an agreement signed in Egypt that was also had the A, B, and C zones, just like what here around me right now with the so-called Palestinian Arabs. So they did the same thing in Egypt, A, B, and C zones. Basically, different zoning areas where the Egyptian military basically had an agreement with Israel that they would not allow military infrastructure, military presence so close to Israel's border, as then that could be a buffer zone between Israel and the Egyptians, a safe zone. That's a part of the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel all the way back to 1979. So A zone, you're allowed to have military force, but not more than 22,000 military personnel, a few hundred tanks and artillery pieces. And then B zone is just another area there in the Sinai Peninsula that's you're only allowed 4,000 troops. And then as you get closer to the Israeli border, no Israeli troops allowed, only police force. So the reason why this is important is so that we can understand how this occurred in the northern Sinai. What's the destruction all about? Part of the agreement was, as I've just outlined, was that it was a demilitarized zone now, basically. Once you get all the way to the end, the C zone, which no military presence, you just have police presence. What did that become? It became, after Israel pulls out, right? So now you have an abandoned Sinai to now a demilitarized Egyptian Sinai that now has become a hub for ISIS. ISIS moved in full. They took over northern Sinai and began to build infrastructure. That's what happened. all the way from even as early as just 3 years after that peace treaty with Israel, the first tunnels began to be found going from Egypt to Gaza. This was the beginning all the way back then. Guys, I've never heard that. You've bound to never heard that. I'm telling you, this is unreal stuff. ISIS, the first, obviously it's there on Egyptian territory. ISIS attacked Egyptian forces the first time in 2012. A major massacre happened. I believe it was 17 people were killed on Egyptian military police force was killed. Now, Egypt responded. And this is important to know the history, how this all happened. Israel responded, started a full-scale attack against ISIS. Anybody know ISIS was in Egypt? Yeah. ISIS took over and fully engaged and embedded itself inside northern the northern area there of the Sinai in Egypt. 2013, Egypt started a full-scale attack in trying to rid the area of ISIS. They forcibly removed the residents of Rafah and the other area, neighborhoods around it, pulled them out, and then went in so that they could attack ISIS, face-to-face ISIS, pulled residents away and attacked the terrorist entities in that area, okay? So this is what actually happened. Full-fledged attack on ISIS. They nearly completely, during this attacks, they nearly completely destroyed those northern cities. Unreal, right? So we're talking about terrorist infrastructure under the ground that ISIS had already built, including above the ground. You just go on Google Maps right now and look. Take that aerial picture, satellite imagery, go and look, and you'll see utter destruction to this day. We're talking about 2024. So continue. The full-scale operation continues from 2013 all the way to 2017, of which they do a major attack where we see ground troops, we see Air Force and Navy all deployed against ISIS in the northern Sinai. All right, so now they think that's just going to be a quick 3-month war. They have to extend it because they realize the complications, the complexities of fighting terrorists amongst civilians. Yes, that's what's going on. Okay. This is one of the Egyptians in the Committee of Defense and National Security stated this, and this just emphasizes the point. It says the terrorist used, and his name is Ahmed, he says Al-Wadi, he says the terrorist used to hide among civilians in Rafah, which constituted a major security problem. Yeah. And then here's another quote. He says, the terrorists used to get essentials supplies through the tunnels along the border area. Okay, sounds familiar, doesn't it? We're going to keep going. Hey guys, we'll be right back. But first, do you know one of the best ways to support Israel right now during this war is to buy products from Israeli businesses? Our friends at Blessed by Israel ship the beautiful products of small businesses and families from Israel's heartland to people all around the world. You can buy the wonderful taste, smells, and goodness of the Promised Land, and Blessed by Israel ships them straight to your doorstep. Check out the amazing extra virgin olive oil, savory spices, cosmetics, hand cream, soaps, lotions, chocolate, coffee, and much, much more. The best part about this is that at the same time as you're enjoying the goodness of the land of Israel, you're also blessing the faithful pioneers who are restoring and rebuilding Judea and Samaria. That's right. Your purchases are an effective way to contribute to the strengthening of Israel. So head over to Blessed by Israel, that's B-U-Y, Israel.com, to buy the wonderful products of Israel's heartland and support the pioneers of Judea and Samaria. Again, that's Blessed by Israel.com. The link is in the description below. All right, it got so bad that supposedly even Israel, in a joint covert mission, along with the cooperation with the Egyptians, they did 100 covert airstrikes against Sinai militants in 2016 and 2017. All, of course, in coordination with President Sisi there in Egypt. Israel helped to destroy this terrorist infrastructure. Now, this is insanity. This is what's been going on since 2012. This is the battle that Egypt's been waging against terrorism all of this time. Now, they're saying they're trying to rebuild, right? So they've rebuilt the city called New Rafah City. After the whole thing's been leveled, you can go on Google Maps, you see this huge area, all the destruction all around it. They're trying to rebuild it. He says, the president says that they would have rebuilt this city because, look, they've got all of these citizens that they've pulled out, thousands and thousands of people to fight these. And now where do these people go? They haven't been able to go anywhere. So they've built this new city to try to create an area for these citizens to go back into. Well, the president says that, Sisi says that because of the terrorism in the area, they would have had this built long ago. They would have started the rebuilding of the new Rafah, because there's no Rafah hardly anymore, right? The new Rafah that they're trying to build in Egypt, he said would have been started 3 years before, but they're just now starting to get that finished up now. Now, here's a few clips from a few news agencies that stated these things a long time ago, which I find fascinating. The Al Monitor news agency in 2021 stated this. They said the Egyptian army has destroyed hundreds of smuggling tunnels in the border area with Gaza since 2014. Some of the tunnels were so big that they could allow the passage of livestock and thousands of barrels of oil from Egypt into Gaza. All right, that's what they stated. What I find fascinating was this. The first time I heard about massive tunnels going in and out of Gaza to Egypt was just recently. Al Monitor posted this in 2021, folks. We're going way back. If they posted it, everybody forgot about it. But this was from 2014 when the Egyptian army destroyed hundreds of tunnels, okay? Then we look again at according to the Middle East Eye, another report says that more than 2,000 tunnels were destroyed by military engineers in the border city of Rafah between 2011 and 2015. And of course, that's just talking about the Egyptian military was destroying these tunnels. So if they've destroyed 2,000 tunnels going back and forth from Egypt to Gaza, what are we looking at today? I'm telling you, this is insanity. Supposedly, Israel's just been fighting this war for the last 11 months. But if we take a look at what's going on in Egypt, Egypt's been fighting this war since 2012. How insane. None of us knew about this. Here's another quote behind the scenes. We're talking about an Arab harb at the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. He says, American mediation could see Egypt, and this is going to the point of where we're at right now, between Egypt and Israel now on the Philadelphia corridor. He says again, American mediation could see Egypt turning a blind eye to an Israeli takeover of the Philadelphia, which has happened now, in exchange for a modification in the terms of the 1979 treaty, such that it is allowed to increase its forces in zones A and B, but not in C. Remember, we started it out with this. So he's saying that maybe the reason why there's a lot of silence over there on the Egyptian side is because they're being there's a exchange going on where they're saying we're going to allow you to bring your military a little closer. We're going to allow you to fill in those demilitarized zones in payment for us being able to take over the Philadelphia corridor. So what's really going on, guys? Israel is just now fighting terror beds inside Gaza, but it seems like what's been going on in Egypt has been happening for many, many years now. So much so, and everybody's giving Israel such an incredibly hard time about pulling out these so-called citizens and trying to fight terrorists head on. Well, this is exactly what Egypt did. Why is the world coming unglued about what Israel's doing when Israel's using the same exact tactics that Egypt did? Guys, what's baffling to me as we wrap up here is that the world didn't even know about Israel's fight against terror. Didn't even know about it. Didn't know about the massacre. Didn't know about their campaign against it. Didn't know about their, since 2012, fight against it. But the day Israel is attacked and massacred, even much more so, and their affront and attack against terrorists, somehow the world comes unglued about it. They engage in it. They're all involved. When Egypt did everything in silence, no one even knew a word about it, had nothing to say about it. Egypt's fight against terror was left to Egypt. Egypt could decide how they wanted to do it. And they decided that they would attack terrorists, straight on with terrorists. They would pull civilians out and try to attack those areas and actually completely destroy all the cities. You look at those maps. Destroy the infrastructure, destroy the cities, destroy over 2,000 tunnels, according to some. That's what Egypt did. And now, when Israel does exactly the same thing that their Arab neighbors did against terrorism, the world comes unglued and says, you can't, you must stop, you must stop, you must stop. Ladies and gentlemen, that's nothing more than Jew hatred. Having a separate set of rules for Israel than every other nation in the world is nothing more than anti-Semitism, Jew hatred. It must be recognized right now. Israel has every right not only to defend itself, that's a given, folks. That is an absolute given. Anyone that says Israel has a right to defend itself is a Jew hater from the start. Israel has a right to defend itself. Of course, that's an obvious. No one should be telling you you have a right to defend yourself. That's a given, folks. What Israel has a right to do is to go and fight its enemies without any interference from the international community, just like what the world allowed Egypt to do. Those were terrorists within its border. They must be fought as terrorists within your border. I hope this has been enlightening. This has certainly been a new thing for us to find here. Of course, there's so much sitting right under our noses that we have no earthly idea about. Sometimes we just got to pick up our head and look. And thankfully, that's what we've done here. And hopefully this helps the discussion between what's going on with Israel and what's going on in Egypt. And maybe this can enlighten everyone with what Israel needs to do. Egypt has already done it. And they, for the most part, seems that they have beat off the terrorism in that area, and they must succeed even further. Obviously, we still have tunnels going underneath, but seemingly there was so many more before. Guys, all of those tunnels have to be done away with, and just like Egypt has fought terrorism, Israel must fight terrorism, and it must be put to an end once and for all. Guys, as always, stop listening to all those lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening here in Israel. And also, don't forget, guys, to go to Blessed by Israel and support the Jewish people of Judea and Samaria right here in the heartland. We'll catch you next time.